All right. Did you know that? Did you know that was recorded? All right. Let's cut with the hatred of orphans for the duration of the Bible study. Okay. We're in Acts 8 still. See how much progress we can make. We just got through the it's a weird, you don't really want to say that one piece of writing is more important than another, but man, that parable of the sower is really indicative. It's important in the sense that it's like a meta parable. It's a parable that explains all the parables and why he told parables and why he did it the way that he did. What did I say? Acts? Did I say Acts? Sorry. Yeah. We're in Luke. Well, I just got finished teaching Acts, and I've done sermons twice on Acts in the last year. So
we're doing Acts
and then you were talking about Acts earlier. But anyway, that's how the parable of the sower functions. It's the only parable where he explains why he speaks in parables. So that's the fundamental purpose of it. It does communicate something about the world and the kingdom. All parables are really about the kingdom, but also it explains why he speaks to them in parables. And why does he speak to them in parables?
So that they will not see, hearing they will not hear.
So what is that? What is the sort of unavoidable implication of where this whole story is going with regard to Israel, given the fact that he's veiling his meaning specifically so that the blindness will remain? What is the implication of that for Israel? You're not going to see it in this book or Acts, past Romans. The implication is Israel's in a lot of trouble. That he came for more than just, we're Christians, so we think he came for salvation, which he did. He came to atone for sins. But prophets always, as I've said, this is ad hoc. Prophets always bring promise and warning. They go together almost every time. And so he does that. And that's how the prophetic ministry functions. I was thinking about when I was getting ready for what I did yesterday at Covenant Life. I was thinking about Elijah. And I don't know that he ever issued a promise. He just came to warn 100%. And Isaiah, we're going to look at a couple of them tonight again. But warning is a big, big part of the prophetic ministry. Then you move forward into John's ministry. You get these statements, the axe is laid at the root of the tree. Who warned you to flee from the wrath to come? Lots of warning. Jesus warns, woe to you. He's going to get to some woes. He's going to, basically prophesy the destruction of the temple. And then all of that's going to happen between 66 and 70 AD. And there's not going to be anything left at all. So that's the purpose of the parables, probably in service to that future act of God. It's not pretty, but it's there. Got to deal with it. Okay. We'll talk more about parables later in this one probably, but we'll go ahead and move on from it and deal with, let's just do 16 through 18 quickly. I don't have a lot to say about this.
No one after lighting a lamp covers it with a jar or puts it under a bed, but puts it on a stand so that those who enter may see the light. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be made known and come to light. Take care then how you hear, for to the one who has, more will be given, and from the one who has not, even what he thinks he has will be taken away.
So if you look at that word, so what ties this parable, if you want to call it a parable, with the one before? How do you tie these two together? Why does Luke put the one after the other? What version did you use?
PSC.
Let's go to that. Let's go to let's look at the ESV.
So I mean, he who has ears, let him hear, and he's talking about. Oh, well, I guess I'm on verse 18, which is not the parable.
Okay, 16. Look at this phrase, right? Take care how you hear. Hearing. And if you go back to the parable before, as for those that in the good soil, those are in the good soil, they are those who hearing the word act on it. And then the next one has that phrase, take care how you hear. That's why I don't like this translation right here. Take care how you listen. I don't know why they did that. But yeah, because when you see the words, then you can see how these two things are tied together. I don't know that, it's not like the parable of the sower is calling you to do anything. It's just explaining what is happening. But here, he does have something to say about it. Be careful how you hear. And I think what he means by that, of course, is when you hear, you have to act. So hearing requires action. And hearing and not acting is a serious thing. And it's happening all around him.
Does it have to do with the fact that it's on the heels of this, to use the granted to know the mysteries and the rest parables, like seeing and may not see?
Well, that's interesting too.
When we were asking that earlier, the implications for Israel, I was just thinking like, the implications are true and present when Jesus is talking, but ultimately we get this bigger picture and it's available to all, post, Bible availability or whatever. And so the ultimate purpose was not for it to be veiled indefinitely or whatever.
Yeah, because he explains it.
Yeah,
Eventually, it's going to be written down for everybody to see. He's
Yeah.
going to explain it.
right. So it has an immediate implication. I don't know.
But just think of the indifference. People read this, think of the indifference that people
Yeah.
react to it. With
Yeah.
This means nothing to it. There's this is my issue with application points. You have to understand. You have to feel the significance of something before it matters enough to want to do something about it. And if you don't understand, if you don't feel the significance of it, you can give them all kinds of good application points. They're not going to do a single thing with it because this is not significant. And so it's that when you move from, meaning and implications over to significance, that the text matters. That Jesus matters in some other this way or that way. There's not even a, you can see in people's lives when they hit that moment. They don't know why. They just know they got to do something, and they don't know what it is. So they go seek. It propels them out of the chair to go find people like Claire or somebody, so they can talk to them. That it matters. I told that story about the friend of the guy on staff. Is there any hope for sinners? Did he respond to anything? I don't, when a person who doesn't believe any of this stuff says, is there any hope for sinners? Something's going on. So he gets the significance of something. He doesn't need to know why. He doesn't know why yet, but the fact that he now thinks something is significant will propel him out of the chair to seek out answers. And until you get that, it's just not, you're not going to do anything with it. It's just words. It'd be the same thing with, for me with Islam. You could read the Quran to me all day long, and I'm just going to look at it. I'm just going to look at you indifferent. All right. So I don't know that we need to talk all that much about all of it, but take care how you hear. There's a lot at stake. Look at the sentence after it. Whoever has, to him more shall be given.
What's up, guys?
Whoever does not have, not only does he doesn't even get to just walk away. What he has will be taken away from him. There's going to be a parable that illustrates that exact point. When we get there, the 10 talents versus the, 5 talents versus the 1 talent. And the guy with the 1 talent is going to bury it. The guy with the 10 talents is going to go earn 10 talents. And so when the master comes back, he takes the 1 talent from the one guy and gives it to the guy with 10 talents. That's perfect illustration. There's no neutral, there's no in the middle. You don't get to bury, you don't get to just sit there. Everybody is called to action, or there's a line, and you are not allowed to stand on the line. You must be on one side or the other. Okay.
So sometimes in things aren't in order, right? Or like sometimes in the gospels, things are in order, or we don't know that they're necessarily chronological.
Yeah, actually, we're
Right.
going to see a perfect example of that in verse 22 here.
So with that, is it possible that these verses are not necessarily connected, or can you tell from the syntax?
Okay, that's a good point. So what connects them? What if the thing that Jesus said in 16 through 18 was said 6 months before the parable? of the sower?
Or I was also wondering, like, so are we certain, is that all one time of him speaking, or could it be like, cause I guess I'm confused how. No, I feel like it all connects, but like there's a sense where they're a little disjointed. Whereas I feel like when you're talking in a sentence, usually it's pretty like linear. And this feels like it's kind of jumping maybe like here to here and then back here.
Yeah, there's a reason. So the master craftsman here is the divinely inspired author who does selection and composition.
Right.
So he selects, he's got material. And so Luke had all these traditions, as he said in chapter 1, having investigated everything carefully, I've written it down in what he calls consecutive order. That doesn't mean that every single story happens in some kind of, because how would Luke know that this is the chronology of the stories? And does he even care? He just knows there's this tradition where Jesus said this, and there's a tradition where he said that. And so he's going to order things, he's going to select and order things to serve his purpose. So the parable of the sower comes about people who hear and people who don't. And then right after that, there's another section, there's something else Jesus said is about the importance of hearing. He could have put it the other way around. He chose to do it this way, but he did it deliberately. No question about that. But there's no sense here that we must assume that these things happen in this order. They almost certainly, in my mind, they almost certainly did not. And that continues when the mother and brothers show up. It just says, and his mother and brothers came to him. But
Right.
when that happened.
So then as you were reading through a gospel and like you're keeping that in mind, then does it go to, well, this was divinely coordinated by the Holy Spirit, so therefore there's a reason for this?
Yes.
For the order?
Yes,
Okay.
and it constrains you, because now you can't just interpret these things. You can't just do whatever you want with these things. You're constrained by why the author put things there, chose these things and in this order. And my way of saying that is always in narrative, well, I wish with everything, but especially with narrative, why this here? And you have to grapple with that. Why this here? Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. If it's not obvious, don't work too hard. Just not sure. I'm gonna, maybe I'll understand it in 10 years. I'll have a better picture of, I noticed something when I was, so I spoke yesterday at Covenant Life, and either it's all a blur now because I practiced that 45-minute talk 13 times, I think, over the previous 2 days or something like that. So it changes a lot because every time you talk through it, you think of something, or and it never really gets solidified. I mean, at a certain point, you got to solidify it. You got to say, okay, this is what I'm going to say. But I noticed either Saturday night or early Sunday morning, it's kind of a blur, that and I said this in the talk, that the angelic messenger's announcement to Mary about the birth of Jesus he will be called Son of the Most High, and he will at the throne of David forever. It is a fulfillment. It is, of course, it is not just a fulfillment of 2 Samuel chapter 7. It's a exact replica of it. It's a claim on it. It's like a retelling or a reinterpretation of it with Jesus instead of Solomon. There's no distance between David and Jesus. He's the son of David. Nobody in between. I never noticed that before. I mean, I've taught that book. I've read that book I don't know how many times, listened to that book I don't know how many times, read commentaries on it, both of them, Luke and 2 Samuel, and had never seen it before. So, you don't know, that's fine. You just go as far as you can go and then stop and let you don't get any credit for there's no brownie points for being creative in your interpretation of the Bible. You don't ever want to be creative. We'll be conservative because we'll get there eventually, hopefully. And just know that you know enough. Just build on your knowledge in some way. So you've heard me say this before, to sum up this thought. We got a lot of questions like that. We got a lot of questions about, what's going on in these texts. And most of the questions are irrelevant. And they're irrelevant because the text doesn't answer them. That's the definition of irrelevant from the vantage point of God. And so your job is to find the questions the text is meant to answer and then ask those questions. Why does he speak to them in parables? It's such an important question. We don't have to wonder about it because the text answers the question explicitly. Why does he speak to them in parables? Why is it important to hear correctly? Well, you can look up and to the right and think of 8 reasons why it's important to hear correctly, or you can look in the text and find the divinely inspired answer to the question, because he's obviously trying to answer it. For those to whom it has been granted, I connect these two parables, let's just call them both parables, together through the hearing theme of both of them. To those who has granted to know the message of the kingdom, the message is obvious. For those whom it has not been granted, the message is impossible. And I think you should also then, it can make you have patience with other people, because what is obvious to you and what is easy to you is obvious to a relatively small percentage of the population with regard to the Bible. And so, and you don't want to take credit for even knowing it. God brings you along over the period of years, and you have to have humility and patience with other people. Okay, that's enough of that, I think. The hearing thing, I think, is the most important part of that. 19 through 21.
Then his mother and his brother came to him, but they could not reach him because of the crowd. And he was told, "Your mother and your brothers are standing outside, desiring to see you." But he answered them, "My mother and my brothers are those who hear the word of God and do it."
Okay, so this operates at 2 levels. There's a physical distancing between Jesus and his family. They cannot get to him because of the crowd. So the crowd is physically between Jesus and the family. And then Jesus, what's the word for that? When he, not abstracts it, but he distances himself also from his family, because he says, my mother, my brothers are those who hear my words and do it. So he himself in his words puts distance between him and his family. So it's got a physical side and I don't know what you want to call that, a spiritual side in that distancing. And in between is the crowds and the disciples. And so you can see how the disciples then are physically also more, the disciples between him and his family are more important in some sense than his family. And so then he reflects that in his words. My mother and my brothers are those who hear the word of God. And hearing again. If you want to wonder what ties these three, we're still on this hearing thing. What's more valuable to me, says Jesus, is those who hear my words and do them. Now, in this case, that sounds mean, but remember, I think it's probably true that all of these people in his family end up as disciples in Acts. His mother and his brothers are going to be praying in the upper room with the disciples. They don't name them, but the implication of not naming them is that they're all there. And remember, we have 2 books from Brothers of Jesus. So it's probably not as harsh as it sounds. But anyway, he's radically redefining kinship. Man, in that culture, kinship was everything. That extended family, that was everything. And he won't let disciples use that as a reason. He won't let disciples use that to come between him and them, the family. There's going to be that statement coming up pretty shortly. I don't remember which chapter it's in, 9, 10, where so let me first bury my father. No, no, let the dead bury their dead. You come and follow me. Yeah. So I think that's what's going on, and what ties these 3 things together is the hearing. The seed in the fourth soil, that's the hearing, those who hear and do. Take care how you hear. And now my mother and my brothers are those who hear and do and act on what I say. So he's casting broadly the seed, but very few will respond, but he continues to cast broadly. Another way of saying that is to broadcast. When you broadcast, you're not talking to anybody in particular. You're talking to everyone, anyone who will listen. And you can see the people who listen, and you can notice them, and they make themselves fairly obvious. And then you're going to find out sometime later that a lot of them weren't, they're going to walk away. That's in the parable of the sower too. But some of them won't, and those are the ones that he's calling. Let's see here. Might be it for that. So he redefines the very idea of kinship. His kin are those who hear and act on what he says, not his physical kinship.
Is that word for brothers in Greek?
Adelphos.
Brother?
Huh? Yeah, there's only one word for that.
Is there a word for cousin? I'm just curious.
No,
Thinking
not,
about-
I mean, I'm
thinking
sure there
about-
is, but I don't know what that word is. What
thinking
verse is
about
that?
the Catholics.
Yeah. Let's just settle the question. No, I mean, you would just say that. So there's, oops, wrong. Sec, let's take a look. I should have got it here. I should just open it, keep it open. But let's settle I know how this is going to go, but. Verse is at 21. My mother and brothers right there. Brothers, that's Adelphoi. Adelphoi, I guess. Accents on the end, but that's plural. Philadelphia, city of brotherly love. Philos, by the way, not agape. So just brothers and sisters. I think it's sisters in one of the other books as well, which is just the same word, only feminine.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think there's anything there. You just simply, to read cousins or relatives, you just have to assert it. You just have to claim. But then if you do that, if you say he means my mother and my cousins, my mother, my brothers, or my sister, then you have to say male cousins and female cousins.
Yeah.
But the only reason you would do that is the need to.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of, I mean, this is not really relevant to what you're teaching necessarily, but I also think it's kind of. They would never handle Mary in this way.
No, this is very much a problem for the the kind of the exaltation of Mary
Yeah.
thing. This right here is a big problem. He's definitely distancing himself from his mother. And at the cross, he's going to do the same thing.
So over to John.
Yes, woman, behold your
Your son.
mother, hope behold your son, son, behold your mother. Yeah. If you could say he's asking John to take care of her, but he's doing more than that. Why would Luke care about that? He's asking, there's more going on in that. And then Mary ends up as a disciple. So there's nowhere in there. I mean, this is one of the only times she appears in the narrative. Maybe it is the only time since the birth narrative. So we're in chapter 8, and now I think she simply disappears, and she never says another thing.
I'm sure that we're with these 12.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so she speaks, but even when in the instance at the temple, she doesn't come off looking very good. It's a denigration of her because, son, why would you do this to us? We were looking all over for you. Why were you looking all over for me? Didn't you know that I would be about my father's business? It's kind of a chastisement on the part of Jesus, the 12-year-old, concerning his mother's lack of understanding. You know,
Yeah.
and then there's this where she doesn't say anything and she can't get to him. And then that's it. Then she's gone until Acts chapter 1, where she doesn't say anything. It's mentioned, she's praying in the upper room, and then she simply disappears from the narrative. So that's, to me, that's a summary of the problems with the exaltation of Mary in more than just the being chosen to give birth to Jesus. All right, take a little bigger piece here, 20, well, maybe not, 22 through 25. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going back to the old book.
Yeah.
She says, what is it? She says, I will be exalted among,
Henceforth, all generations will call me blessed.
oh, it's just, they were calling gods.
Yeah.
Well, the angel did that. He'll favor one.
Okay.
I do think her position is super unique, and I think like the only.
Yeah.
It's the only, like. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I can't think of other self-exaltation, but it's not her. She's saying from now on, everyone else is gonna call me blessed, not because of her, but because of what she
Yes.
gets to do.
That's right.
That's
That's exactly right.
Like, yeah,
And you have to read an awful lot into that statement. And that really is all you have to hang your hat on. You just have that statement. You have to read an awful lot into that statement.
Yeah.
Nihil is just simply greetings. Greetings, favored one. You know,
Yeah.
and on we go. Okay, 22 through, yeah. wanna say
No,
something?
no, you're good.
20 22 through 25.
Now it happened on a certain day that he got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, "Let us cross over to the other side of the lake." And they launched out. But as they sailed, he fell asleep, and a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water, and and were in jeopardy. And they came to him and awoke him, saying, "Master, Master, we are perishing." Then he arose and rebuked the wind and the raging of the water, and they ceased, and there was a calm. But he said to them, "Where is your faith?" And they were afraid and marveled, saying to one another, "Who can this be? For he commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him."
Okay, they going across a lake. The lake is right here. The Sea of Galilee, which
you can't see your mouse. Oh, there you go.
here's the Sea of Galilee, which was renamed in the wake of Tiberius becoming emperor in 14 BC, 14 AD. Now it's Lake Tiberias, and it was also had a third name. I forget the name of it, but anyway, this is where so here's Capernaum. So somewhere in here, we don't know where, at some time we don't know, on a certain day, right? That's all it says, right?
One day.
One day, maybe before all the things we just read about. Who knows? Doesn't matter. But so Luke arranges these things to serve his purposes in communicating something about Jesus, and that's the work to do. So he's going to go across, and when he gets to the other side, he's going to be in Gentile territory. If he's in, let's see, came to the other side, I forgot, the country of the Gerasenes. So if he's down here in the Decapolis, the 10 cities, these are Gentile cities. He's in, for whatever reason that we're not told. Luke has no, Jesus doesn't say why, Luke doesn't record why. Jesus just one day said, well, let's all get in a boat and let's go across the lake, the Sea of Galilee, where you guys fish. And we're going to go to Gentile territory. And nobody thinks to ask why, or Luke doesn't record why, it doesn't matter. There's probably a little bit of foreshadowing here because Luke is, of course, the only Gentile writer in the New Testament. And so it's probably not a coincidence that you have this story. Is this story in, I think that is in Mark, actually. I think it's in, but anyway, I will explain why Luke would be interested in it because he's a Gentile. Or possibly interested in it because he is a Gentile. And he doesn't really name we don't know who the disciples were that got into the boat, but my hunch is disciples now is a synonym for the 12. It's kind of a euphemism, the other side of the lake. You know, he doesn't tell you that they're going to Gentile territory. He says the other side of the lake. Oh, of course, all the disciples are going, why on earth are we going to the other side of the lake? They don't want to go to Gentile territory. They don't want to go to Samaria. They don't want to go to Gentile territory. So he's going to take them to both places. And that leads to most famous miracles in the Bible. It is without question a sign. Just let me go back and just go back to the text. Let's look at this again. So he's resting, woke him up. I wouldn't do a sermon on that. His ease of mind while this is going on. Yeah, you can infer some things from that, but that doesn't seem to be anything that Luke is interested in. His ease of mind, peace of mind while this was going on. You know, it's a single phrase. The point is not that Jesus was sleeping. It's that the disciples are panicked. And so they have to wake him up because they don't know what to do. Master, we are perishing, which they are. They all, you know, some of them, at least some of them are fishermen. So we all know what happens when these storms pop up in the Sea of Galilee. Many wrecked ships. I watched a documentary on shipwrecks in the Mediterranean when I was in Acts, when we were doing the voyage of Paul from Jerusalem to Rome. There's a book written by a guy by the name of James White a couple of 100 years ago. It's called The Voyage and Shipwreck of St. Paul. And I was thinking about buying it and reading it because it's still kind of definitive. And there's all this talk about all the shipwrecks in the Mediterranean. So I was Googling around looking for all the shipwrecks. It's unbelievable, the number of shipwrecks there have been in the Mediterranean. It kind of gets up, the World War II period is the one where you see the most of them. They go all the way back and you get all these shipwrecks all across the Mediterranean. The water's 200 to 1,500 feet or 5,000 feet, I forget. But at all, you know, at all depths. So, you know, there's no warning. There's no weather service. So all you can do is look at the sky. But, you know, if you're in the middle of the water, you're stuck, man. You see the clouds. What are you going to do? If the wind is against you and you can't get back, then you're just going to hit the storm. So perfect timing. You know, Jesus gets in a boat at this particular time, and there's this ferocious storm. Yeah, you know, this divinely ordained storm, maybe, or something like that. Not a coincidence. There's no coincidences here. So there's a lot happening. You have the disciples in a boat with Jesus who's sleeping. This storm comes out of nowhere by coincidence, and they're headed towards Gentile territory where they're going to find themselves in a cemetery. You know, you put that whole thing together and you think about that. That's quite a graphic picture. And you're these disciples going, what are we doing? And then they just go back. They're just going to go back. They're not going to do anything when they're there. All right, so think of the irony. Look at the response of the disciples. They're going to get rebuked by Jesus for this. He's already told them in the wake of the parable of the sower, to you it has been granted to know the mysteries of the kingdom of God. And then there's this. So they don't really look like people who know and understand the mysteries of the kingdom of God. So I don't know what to do with that, but they almost never come off looking exemplary. I mean, when do they ever look exemplary? They're not going to look exemplary until, well, they don't even really look exemplary in Acts. It's just it's a weird, I mean, they wrote these things, right? So you don't write a book. If you're Peter, you know, Peter was behind the writing of Mark. He's not going to write into the story how he was a hero. He denigrates himself. And I think that was the tendency. There's only, as I said, there's only one hero in the Bible, and that's God. And these disciples make sure in these writings, the people that wrote these things, that he's the only one who's exalted. So Paul, in his testimony before Herod Agrippa, late in Acts, just before he goes to Rome, he denigrates himself. He denigrates himself before the Jews when he's at the temple. They said he brought a Gentile in there. So they're very self-deprecating. And I think it's a deliberate part of the narrative. And so remember, tradition came from these people. So, he got this from the people somehow in the boat. And they denigrate themselves in the story. All right. It's a remarkable lack of perception about who Jesus really is. You have this question. So he says, where is your faith? You have this distinction between faith and fear. Yeah, you can do a sermon on that. You really need to do a sermon on that. But so you have faith versus fear. And it just washes over them. The reality of the situation washes over them. It's not that they had no faith. That's kind of what he's saying. Is he could almost say, what happened to your faith? You get confronted by a storm and it disappears that fast. So he calms it. They did run to him as if he could do something about it. Because if they didn't think he could do anything about it, why would they run to him? You just abandon ship or wait for it to wreck and then try to get back to shore. But then the question that matters. They were saying to one another, so nobody had the answer. There's just this speculation. Who then is this that he commands even the winds and the water and they obey him? To these people, the sea is a gigantic mystery. The weather's a mystery. You've never seen the bottom. You've got people that have died in there. You know how these stories can develop. Maybe you've had it happen yourself and you've had to swim back to shore. Who knows? You can understand why in the ancient times these people ended up worshiping these phenomena. The rain god, the sun god, the storm god, and so forth. They didn't do that, but you can understand how they could end up that way. But they pose the question that matters. It's just odd that the ones that were granted to know the mysteries of the kingdom have to ask the question, after all this, who is this? They don't understand. They know it's an acknowledgement that none of them really understand who he is. And then Luke does not answer the question. And they don't answer the question. They walk away from the event just scratching their heads. None of them know what to make of them. If you think he's the like the angel said, the son of David who takes the throne, he's king, he's Messiah, there's nothing divine in their understanding of the Messiah. He was simply the king that God had anointed. So this display of power, it's an immediate miracle. He talks to the bad weather, rebukes it, and it stops. It's an obedience thing. In response to his rebuke, the weather obeys, and there's a great calm. So obviously he's more than just a Messiah. He's more than we thought he was. We can't make sense of it. We can't put all these pieces together, and they won't yet for a while.
Is it too much to say that this is like a continuation of the listening and hearing? And like Jesus speaks and the wind and waves listen? Because this just says, well, and they obey him. And he tells them to hear, those who hear and obey, right? Isn't that verse 15? Hearing the world hold fast and
That's an interesting thought.
honest and good heart and bear fruit with faith. Like, I don't know if that's
If I was going to go in that direction, I wouldn't have enough assurance to be able to actually speak on that in a public forum. But I would say it would be something like this. even the weather heard and obeyed, but these guys don't know what's going on. It's deprecating to the disciples because even the weather didn't hear. I'm sorry. Yeah, well, it had to because he speaks and the weather obeys. So there is this hearing, and that's interesting. There is a hearing and obeying with the weather.
Because that seems to be a constant.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it.
Right. Well, because then, and then if you,
Soil.
which we're gonna go forward to, but like. The man asks to go with Jesus back across the lake,
Yeah.
right? And Jesus says, no, stay here until others will. I have done
That's
it." He
right.
Stays and obeys.
Yes,
So
yeah,
like
that's a good
a
point. It
Gentile.
continues that
Yeah,
theme, yeah.
and throughout the Decapolis, right? He stays and obeys the word of Jesus. He's had that life-changing moment
Yep.
that led him to obey this application. Like, I don't know, I was just thinking about what you were saying about like.
To hear
hearing
effectively.
Right,
He's now hearing effectively. Yeah.
right.
You're right. It is a constant, it's a constant thing that ties this segment together. Hearing and either obeying or not obeying. And then you have the odd disciples that are supposed to be the ones hearing, but they don't seem to put the pieces together. They're just there. They're in this case here, they're literally just along for the ride.
Right.
They're called out as apostles, but they never, not yet anyway, they never do anything that's exemplary. Not even show faith. Where is your faith? It's as if it's disappeared. So they're a negative example here as well with regard to faith.
Well, it's kind of, I don't know if this is maybe, again, just saying, but same thing with Jairus, right? His daughter's, I know I'm jumping ahead, but his daughter's dead. He's told that she's dead. And Jesus says, I can't remember his exact.
Not dead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he says, do not fear, only believe and she will be well. And they go to his house. Like, his daughter's dead. He knows she's dead. And he doesn't, he's probably afraid, but he chooses to trust Jesus in that moment, chooses
Yeah.
to hear his words and obey.
Yeah, he's a silent kind of observer of, he's a silent, passive participant in the events. He's just there. That's how he functions in the story. He's a vehicle that gets Jesus to the little girl who he's then going to touch, I believe, as I recall. You know, she's impure because of dead body. But we'll get there in a second, of course, or hopefully. Let's go on to the tombs. 26 through 31.
And they sailed to the country of. I don't know what country of.
Gerasenes, let's go with that.
Gerasene, which is the opposite Galilee. And when he came out onto the land, he was met by a man from the city who was possessed with demons, and who had not put on any clothing for a long time, and was not living in a house but in the tombs. Seeing Jesus, how far along the
31.
Seeing Jesus, he cried out and fell before him, and said in a loud voice, "What business have we to do with each other, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man, who had seized him many times, and was bound with chains and shackles and kept under guard, and yet he would break his bond and be driven by the demon into the desert. When Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" he said, "Legion," and many demons had entered him. They were imploring him not to command him to go away from the abyss. Go away into the abyss.
All right, yeah, I just wanted to check something. All right, so they all of this to get into the tombs in a Gentile area without explanation for why, except that he has a date with destiny in some way. So there is a foreshadowing, right? Again, this is Luke. There's going to be a second volume, Acts, and we're going to see the proclamation to the Gentiles. So now you have this event here where this Gentile prefigures, in some sense, the proclamation in Acts. He tells this Gentile to go proclaim how does he say it? What God has done for him, or something like that.
Claimed that this will be the great things we've done.
Yeah. Which is we forget that is the nature of the proclamation, right? It's the proclamation is not a series of theological bullet points. The proclamation is God is a proclamation of God's great acts in bringing about the redemption of his people. And so when you read these proclamations and acts, they're always like that. They're a recitation, a recapitulation of redemptive history in some way. And I think that I don't think you can overstate that here. That's how we think. What's the theology of this guy? I mean, it's not like he suddenly went to seminary to proclaim the gospel. He just is going to go tell what happened to him. So, somehow that amounts to a proclamation of the gospel. Go tell about the great things that God has done for you. And you see the spreading. You remember that? Well, I've had him up the whole time. Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the afflicted, and he has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, proclaim liberty to the captives, freedom to prisoners, proclaim the favorable year of the Lord. And then, the statement to John's disciples: go back and tell John what you saw. The blind received their sight. Blah, 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 blah. Now this guy's going to do that. He is transmitting the after effects of the arrival of the favorable year of the Lord. He's just telling what that looks like, how his little intersection with, he crossed paths with this. He suddenly entered into this great moment in the history of redemption, and Jesus tells him to just take your place and tell what is happening. And what's happening is this, the fulfillment of these great promises from God. He becomes a vehicle for that. All right, lots of interesting stuff here. Crossing of boundaries, forbidden boundaries. You get the Gentile territory. Why the tombs? Did he just, hey, let's go into the tombs? And the disciples are going, what? Not going in there. It's unclean. It's tombs. We're not, those are dead bodies. We don't walk over dead bodies, but he just crosses all those boundaries and obliterates them. They meet a demon, demon tombs, Gentiles. The pigs are coming. Yep. How far did we get? 31?
Mhm.
All right. Let me see what else I got to say about this. The great statement. I got a blue right here. Yeah, okay. So, any Jew, well, I kind of like to see the video of their response to the idea that he was walking them into tombs. Yeah, that's what he did. The man is presented as if, he's in the tombs. He's presented as if he's barely even human. The man of the city was possessed with demons, had not put on any clothing for a long time, was not living in a house, but in the tombs. He's pictured as dead, and he's living in the tombs. Might as well be dead. And then this event happens. And then he becomes the vehicle for the outreach by just simply proclaiming this favorable year of the Lord where these things are happening. But then in the middle of that, of course, the demons answer the question that the disciples asked but couldn't answer themselves. So they asked the question. This is just the way it is in Mark, as I recall too. They asked the question, who is this? And the question is answered in the next story by the demons.
By the demon. Wow, yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. It's not the only time this happens either. Yeah.
Claire, where are the cups at?
Straight through the kitchen, look up on the shelf.
Also, just noticed it. Interesting. Son of the Most High God. Let's go back and look at Luke, because I was talking about it earlier, right? Luke chapter 1. The angel. 32, maybe. He will be great, says the angel to Mary, and he will be called Son of the Most High. So the demons are exactly right. Once out of the mouth of an angel to Mary, and then once out of the mouth of a demon, exactly the same words to Jesus himself. I don't know the purpose of that, but that sure is interesting to me. And obviously, son of the Most High to the Jew would have meant son of David. Second Samuel chapter 7, I will be a father to him, he will be a son to me. Meaning Solomon, human, son of God, anointed, chosen heir. This son of God, if you're a Jew and you thought he was the son of David, now you watch this happen and you hear the demons say, son of the Most High, you think, okay, he's way more than the son of David. He's some other kind of son. Now, nowhere in Luke, I don't think, does it ever call him son of God specifically, like we think of it as in second person of the Trinity. This Luke 1:30 with the angel and Luke 8 here by the demon are the closest we ever come to that second person of the Trinity. Because here, the whole point is he's not just the son of David. The sonship here transcends son of David, human Messiah. That's how I read it. More almost not human presentation of a non-human, bound with chains and shackles and kept under guard. He'd break his bonds, be driven by the demon into the desert. It's pathetic. And then he just gets released. So talk about release of the captives. Proclaim release to the liberty of the captives, freedom to prisoners, bind up the brokenhearted, good news to the afflicted. Wow. It might be the starkest fulfillment of Isaiah 61 verses 1 and 2 in the entire book. He's shackled. They would bind him with chains and shackles.
And you're assuming that this is a Gentile too, which is interesting. It's Isaiah 61, right?
Yeah.
But if this is one of the most stark fulfillments of that for a Gentile.
It's for a Gentile. That's right. That's an excellent point. Yeah. Interesting that a Gentile author of the Bible, author of the book of the New Testament, is the one who I think uses Most High most often. 4 times, Luke 132, 135 here, and then Acts 16, 17. Most High from a Gentile. Doesn't call him Christ. He's Jesus, Son of the Most High. That's indicative of chapter 1, 2. He says, do not be afraid of him, and you will name him Jesus, and he will be called Son of the Most High. And then the demon, Jesus, Son of the Most High. Very, very parallel. More parallel than I realized it was.
Mhm.
Certainly too parallel to be an accident. It is cool. Almost like he was an inspired writer. The question is, did he think of himself as an inspired writer? I have no answer to that. Okay, so they don't want to go into the abyss, whatever that is. I don't think it's important for now. We don't have enough information. This is where I back off and say, I'm not going to make any speculation on that. Legion just means, I think it's, I forget the number, but lots. So let's do 32 through 33. No, let's do 30. Let's do through the rest. 32 through 39.
Now a herd of many swine was feeding there on the mountain. So they begged him that he would permit them to enter them. And he permitted them. Then the demons went out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd ran violently down the steep place into the lake and drowned. When those who fed them saw what had happened, they fled and told it in the city and in the country. Then they went out to see what had happened and came to Jesus and found him from whom the demons had departed, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. They also, who had seen it, told them by what means he who had been demon possessed was healed. Then the whole multitude of the surrounding region of the what is the name of that? What are we calling that again?
Gerasenes word for me.
Region of the Gerasenes asked him to depart from them, for they were seized with great fear, and he got into the boat and returned. Now the man from whom the demons had departed begged him that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, return to your own house and tell what great things God has done for you. And he went his way and proclaimed throughout the whole city what great things Jesus had done for him.
That's a Luke thing right there. I just noticed it again. Return to your house and describe what great things God has done for you. He tells somebody to do something or whatever, and then Luke says that it happened. So it's the same words. Tell what great things God has done for you. So he even went away telling what great things God has done for him. It's a very Luke thing. He does it many times. And I've started to notice it now. But anyway, there's the fear again, just like the disciples back at the beginning. No, not the beginning, but wherever that is, that they were fearful. Let's see, where's the first fear? Fear scale, something, and then they're panicked, and then they were fearful. I guess that's it. And then you have these citizens of whatever the country of the Gerasenes is, who are gripped with great fear. So there's a contrast there between them and the disciples who are still with Jesus, but I don't know if I would make much of that either. Anyway, so you have a Gentile territory, tombs, a demon-possessed man, and a herd of swine. And it just doesn't get any more ugly for an Orthodox devout Jew. And somewhere in there, if you're among them, you'd have to be going, wow, look where I am. And there's nothing I can do about it because I can go back out across the sea.
Right.
Yeah. So
Situation.
Jesus' mission attracts opposition from both Jews and Gentiles. It's not like he's more welcomed by the Gentiles. He's going to be rejected by the Jews, the Gentiles, and then also by the Samaritans when he sets his face to go to Jerusalem. And it's almost like no matter what he does, do something magnificent like this, the response is still rejection. He's going to be, in spite of everything he did in Israel, in Galilee and in Judea, he's going to be rejected. In spite of what he did in Gentile territory, he's going to be rejected. I don't know what he did in Samaritan territory, but he got rejected. So his ministry in life was one of rejection by the majority, and then faith by the remnant, by the few. The good news is rejected strongly. Please go away. And that is Jesus' last trip to Gentile territory. And we can close right there. I don't have any more to, I mean, I think that's how it functions. We don't know why he went, but the way it functions is we see this nation proclamation of the gospel in Gentile territory. We see the demon answer the question the disciples have asked and reaffirmed what the angel said. That's how it functions to me. It reaffirms, validates what the angel said, that it's the Son of Jesus, Son of Most High. It's just odd that the history of redemption takes Jesus to Gentile territory to make that affirmation of the angel. It's weird. Anybody got anything else to say?
Why the pigs, Gary?
Why the pigs? Because they're unclean.
Well, do you think it's also partially like, I don't know if this is giving the demons too much credit, but that's what caused, well, I guess it's that and his healing that caused the Gentiles to reject Jesus, right? So
There's to these people, the powers that are being displayed are simply beyond. These things are happening at the supernatural level. There's this battle between the demon-possessed man. So it's a battle between demons and someone else who's got powers like this. And now they watch what happens with the herd. And it's just simply too much for them. This is way above their head. It's not like a normal It's not like a fight between humans. It's not like the demon possessed man is fighting another human. There's a higher war going on, and for these people, they don't want any part of this.
Isn't it just really, I always find it like it's an extremely human reaction, because humans are
Yes.
very fearful. We're very
Yes.
afraid. And if we
For
say-
especially for anything we don't know, we don't
Exactly,
understand.
anything
Yeah.
that we don't understand, and that can be anything, let alone seeing like demons being
Yes.
cast out of somebody.
Yes,
Be like, what?
they have no information.
Yeah, so we'd probably all be pretty scared too.
Yes, I wouldn't assume that I would do anything different from what they did.
Right,
And the whole crowd did it, right?
yeah.
How do they say it?
Honestly, I just kind of assume whatever like the worst reaction is, I'd probably like at the cross, I wouldn't have been the remnant of the disciple. I'd be calling for his crucifixion. Like,
Probably, yeah.
you know, like, and that's I probably picked that up from my dad, but like, I don't want to put myself in the position of being like, oh no, I would have been the guy who was doing
No,
this, saying
yeah.
like, I want to go with you. I would have been like, get the frick away from me,
Right.
'cause I don't know anything about you.
Yeah, the human tendency is to follow the herd. Because the middle of the herd is where it's safe. You know, the middle of the school of fish, you turn with the school of fish and you try to stay in the middle of the school. So you don't get caught out. And that's just human nature. But here it says, it's not like some of the people of the country, most of the people of the Gerasenes asked him to leave. No, all the people of the country of the Gerasenes and the surrounding district came out and asked him to leave. And they were not taking no for an answer. The odd thing is, after a man displays that kind of power, how did you think you were going to enforce your demand that he leave?
Yeah.
Maybe they
Or
just
they
asked him very politely, please, 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 please leave.
Yeah, but doesn't Jesus give off an air of approachability? Even when he's displaying these magnificent miracles and doing these things, he always has he's very approachable. It seems like, so maybe there's a divine element to it where people just feel comfortable telling him to shove off.
So if you're these people, what is your view of deity? It's territorial. Why would they ask him to leave? Well, because something mighty and uncontrollable is in our midst, and all we can do, we want it to go out of our territory, because
Right.
once it goes out of our territory, it's like Yahweh, the God of the desert, to the Egyptians. No, it's better yet, it's the Ark of the Covenant in Philistine territory. We just gotta get this thing out of our territory, because this God is really angry. He wants to be back in his territory.
Yeah.
So let's put him on a cart with some oxen. We'll just get him back in his own territory and we'll be fine. Right? That's how they thought of this kind of stuff. So this here, that's probably what, if he's not a God to them, he represents one. And
Right.
so they think, if you leave, we know that you're taking the power of this God that's behind you with you. And then this is a great thing, but we don't know what you're going to do. So we just prefer,
Yeah.
Maybe something like that.
Yeah.
That's how idolatry function. It's the God of a thing, the God of the storm God, the sun God, the moon God, the God of the river. They got their domains. And so now he's here. Oh my goodness, we got this God or something. We got to get him out of here. Because he destroyed the whole herd. So he's got this power
Right.
that's uncontrollable. We don't know what he's going to do. You might view what happened to the demoniac as a positive thing.
Mhm.
But what do you do with he just destroyed this whole herd of swine. What's he going to do next? I'm just reading between the lines, I don't know. So back to Charlotte's point that, I probably would have done the same thing. Oh, I'm sorry, boy. Jeez, oh Pete. I haven't even seen Charlotte in
10 years.
yeah. Was she at the, was
She's
she?
at the wedding.
She
She's
was.
at the wedding.
Okay. Anyway, sorry.
What a wedding.
What a wedding.
So let's go ahead and shut down now that I've embarrassed myself.
For you, Aaron.
Aaron wasn't invited.
Neither was Joe.
I'm gonna go ahead and end the recording.